Hey everybody. So I wanted to do a companion piece to that first video because I realized that there's some other aspects just to have clarity that are necessary, okay? And let's look at more clarity. We've understood at this point from the first video that, excuse me, the idea of all these economic theories are wonderful, but how do they apply to our situation as the underclass, which is what 99.9.9999 of us are in this world? And I'm talking even people who live comfortably, okay? Even government is basically there to serve the interests of the elites, okay? Keep that in mind, with certain rights and privileges, okay? And even government has at this point a corporate structure, okay? So keep that in mind. This is what I'm talking about. We talked about the fact that more people have to work today to support the same economic interests that they had to support with one person in a family unit. Okay? That's a fact. All right? It's also a fact that population is growing. More people are eating at the pie, and the pie is getting smaller. Okay? We know that because economically, if you look at things, you can see the distribution of resources and how it's shaping out. And it's controlled by people like Elon Musk, who, again, Elon Musk is just a whore for the real power brokers in the world, okay? Don't take him seriously. He's not that smart either, by the way. Anybody with any real intelligence can see that. What he does is he ciphers off the work of people who really are intelligent and dedicated. So, with that being said, we talked about real estate as really being central to the interests of the elites. But let's talk a little bit more, okay? The nice thing about some of the stand ins, some of the puppets for the real power brokers in the world, is that they do give you a clue to the enemy. They really do, because the enemy speaks through them, okay? The oppressors, the people that really have the resources in the world. And we can learn from that if we're very aware of the situation. So let's talk about rich people, okay? When you're rich and you lose connection to your clan, what happens? You get disinherited. Now, when you get disinherited from a situation, a family unit, it is entire. It basically means that they're taking resources away from you. And that is the best way to cripple somebody. If tomorrow I take all the money out of your bank accounts and I lean on all the assets that you have, and we'll talk about why that works in a moment, you actually have nothing but the clothes on your back. For an example of this, look at the situation with Harry and Meghan, okay? They're horrible, so I'm not in any way supportive of them. My point is, even though it's not a total disinheritance, the way the royal family, which again, they're stand ins, but we can see the same behavior that was taught to them by the real power brokers. And the biggest threat to those two is being disinherited, the titles being lost. Okay? That is how punishment is done in those family units. Okay? Because your only power is connection to that power group. Once you don't function as part of that group, you have nothing. I mean, I'm just saying these people, I don't envy their lifestyle, okay? It's horrible. But let's talk for a moment under those cognition that we've just discussed, what rich people really do. First of all, let's take away these myths. Rich people do not own anything, okay? Everything that a rich person has is put into a trust, into a structure that protects it, so that private personal ownership is never afforded. And that's for a very good reason. You are protecting your assets against your government, which is seeing your interests. Your government, to create the illusion of equality and fairness, has to create taxation, including taxation on people's salaries, which some people think brought down the Roman Empire. Is a horrible policy because people who are making a salary can hardly afford that kind of a bump. But you, by putting those things in trusts owned by a trust, cannot be personally taxed for those items. Rich people also have things that defer taxation indefinitely, like whole life insurance, which is something everybody ought to invest in, by the way. That's for another time. But in this way, you have these incredible financial assets you can borrow against and use to borrow more collateral. So if you want to go to a bank and they see that you have a whole life insurance policy with $20 million in it, they'll be glad to lend you $1 million out of low interest. It's a very safe loan for them to make. You can also borrow against that in your own life insurance policy for a very low percentage. And it's very easy. If you borrow $1 million out of your policy to make 5% on that, and it costs you 1% to borrow it for just to keep things so that the insurance companies maintain their powerful position, everybody in that class makes out, okay? Meanwhile, somebody in the underclass, one of us who has to really not have those assets, if we want to borrow $100,000, forget about it. You have to have all these different things in line. And so rich people don't own anything in their name. All right, that's the first thing. The second thing is rich people do not buy things that don't have value. They don't conduct themselves in a manner where they're buying things like these very high-end cars and fashion accessories because they know that it's just stupidity. Buying those things, unless it has incredible material value, is made a certain way, manufactured to standards that are very quality oriented, is ridiculous. Most SUVs in this country that are American made and cost over six figures, you'd be better off buying a cheap Toyota from the 90s. You get more reliability, better performance, easy upkeep, and rich people know that. And they don't need to impress anybody. So keep this in mind. Again, it's all these narratives that try to teach people what has value, to get you to spend your resources on things that are really just perpetuating the economic cycle so that the very wealthy can exploit. If you understand that, you also understand that all the corporations in this country, the really big money-making interests, have basically the same people standing in on their boards, etc. It's the same people. So Keep that in mind as well. Those corporations are the ones that control all the economic activity in the world. And it's the same. And the real people behind those board members, stand ins, you won't ever know who they are. We don't even really know if they're human. Okay? You just, I'm being really honest with you about this. I don't want you to think that I'm insane, but a lot of these things that get perpetuated and you see made look ridiculous, and they are ridiculous. I mean, David Icke's things about the Queen and being a lizard, we know that's ridiculous. However, there's some truth behind some of that, in that at a certain level, we really don't know who's in control. And don't forget that. We don't know who or where they are. Just understand that. There's nothing insane about questioning what that force, those entities are. Finally, let's see how to put this in a way that makes sense. I was trying to think of something that's important. We know to control real estate is important. You can benefit from the activities indirectly if you understand how things move. But the mechanism of action is government, police power, they're enforcement wings of this powerful aristocracy. So, for example, who makes sure, who's the bill payer for your insurance companies? Well, for vehicle insurance, it's the police powers, right? Why would the police give a shit if you have car insurance? And do you need car insurance? If you have 10 people who get together and put in a pool of funds in case there's a car problem, you don't need insurance. Nobody encourages you to do that. It's not even allowed to do that. Okay? Why is that? The only thing anybody should care about is if you're covered for damages. Why do insurance companies have to insure that coverage? Do you know during the Great Depression that the insurance companies didn't lose money and actually made money? They were the only group of businesses that made money at that time. So, all the things, this is what I want to say indirectly. I don't know exactly how to put it, but most of the things that abuse power in your environment are enforcement divisions for the elites who actually control things. That includes police powers, government, okay, including zoning, things like that. Bill Gates can go and buy farmland up indiscriminately. But if you want to buy land that's BLM controlled, every now and then it'll come on the market, but good luck, and they'll give you land that for the time being nobody would want anyway. Okay? So, in a real society that, I won't say fair or just, but progressive, you wouldn't be able to buy resources that actually benefit the public without scrutiny, without an understanding and conditions. Okay? Farming is becoming more and more corporate for a reason. Okay? And that's very dangerous. Farmers do shit out here. I live in an area with farmers, and, they do a lot of polluting shit, a lot of things that they make a lot of noise. They don't give a shit. But you better understand that we have to support farmers, because when they start farming and things become corporate that way, that's your food supply will totally be compromised. So you got to understand what's important, whom to support. They can be assholes sometimes, but you better best believe that subsidies for them, making sure that they feel like it's worth it to pass on those skills, you don't do that. Those interests go to corporate. And once corporate controls them, good luck. Anyway, I hope you see and you can understand the purpose of the things I'm telling you, because there are ways you can hide and there are ways that you can do things differently, but you have to understand what's really going on and not fall prey to all the diversion that you see in the media and just in your communities, what people think. People are being misled horribly. The same people that think that they have a racial grievance or want to call themselves any gender, and are the same people similar to the people who believe that this is a great country that's fair and equitable. You all have the same interests at heart, okay? And you're all being exploited. And this is a great country in some ways, but you have to work with it with knowledge and understanding. If you go in there without that, it's just as much as an exploiter as everywhere else. Although I don't actually, I take that back. You have more opportunities in this country. If you live in Russia, for example, you don't have shit unless you're Putin or you have a relationship and it's fraught with danger. So you're much better off in this country. Let's not make any mistake about it. And when people talk about, the West exploiting, every society that has means has exploited, and it is not simply the West or America that has been guilty of that. Okay? It just so happens that we want to have a certain lifestyle, and it comes at a great cost. It comes at a great cost to the world. However, in my humble opinion, the solution to that is not to take more from the people in this country that have a decent lifestyle. It's rather to work to make sure that other people have a decent lifestyle. And no, it's not easy. There's overpopulation. People breed indiscriminately. When you have kids and you're not going to educate them, you're not going to treat them special so they can rise, it's a horrible thing. And by the way, even the elites are very scared about population. Population growth is the one thing that can win wars, okay? Because when people have more and more disenfranchised kids going out there committing acts of desperation, that's a danger to their structure as well. So that's a mutual danger situation. The things you can do are, let's be real basic here. Raise a family that you can take care of, okay? Educate. Do not fall for this crap about, well, don't get a college education because it doesn't matter. An education, taking 4 years of a life purely to educate oneself, is a luxury that even the stand-in for the elites, as of 2 or 3 generations ago, did not have the luxury of, okay? There's nothing more important than educating, learning how to look at things critically, studying information at a critical level. College is the most easy way to do that for most people because they don't have the ability to get those skills themselves. If you can be an autodidact and learn by yourself, more power to you. But that is, you don't want to go through life with blinders on, like a horse, okay? So educate yourself and understand how things really work, okay? These 2 videos, if you understand what I'm telling you, I've just given you a tremendous gift, okay? If you understand how things really work, you can act accordingly, okay? Try to develop some way to get real estate interest. If not directly, even things like a real estate investment trust, anything that you have some capacity to control property, it's a start, okay? You can borrow against it, etc. Doesn't matter. Okay, I hope this is helpful. I don't want to go over 20 minutes here, which I already just did. We'll